Welcome back to the top 20 board games from Taiwan. My name's Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. Today we're going to continue our countdown list to the top 10 board games from Taiwan. Now, Mini World War II may sound like a war game, but in reality, it's a very clever 90-minute 2v2 drafting card game. There are many things that I love about Mini World War II, but the best thing about this is that it uses multi-purpose cards, and I love seeing those in games. These cards can do a multitude of things. You could tuck one down and research technology, and the technology is very varied. You have one for boats, one for tanks. You could research certain special weapons. You could research the Enigma machine and draw more cards. You could look at the hand of your opponent. And if you're lucky enough, you could research the atomic bomb successfully. And when you research it, you eliminate like half the hand of one of your opponents, and it's brutal. But in addition to researching tech, you can also use it for operational points. So you can move units from here to there or recruit more units. You can also form peace treaties with other countries to increase your score. That's right, score. In this game, it doesn't matter how well you're doing. What matters is that you and your partner are both doing equally well. And that's because your total score is what matters. So if I'm doing well, my partners aren't doing well, that's not a good thing. You can also play your cards to lure China into the war or lure America into the war. Both of them give more units and more cards into a shared deck. Now the board itself is very abstracted out, and the movement can be a little bit of a slog. When you advance, it takes a lot of effort to advance, and when you defend, it takes a lot of effort to defend. So it makes all the hand management really, really tight. And the choices that you have with each of those cards is where all the fun is. You could be researching tank technology because maybe you're just heavy on tanks and you want your tanks to perform well, but you just got recently attacked. So do you take this card with a high operational value to recruit more units and build up a defense, or do you use it to research tank technology because you're already on that path? I really love the small box nature to this game, how it fits nicely and snugly into almost any backpack. And no two games of Mini World War II has ever felt the same for me. Mini Park is a game that's really near and dear to my heart. Not only is it my favorite tile laying game out of Taiwan, but it's also the first game that I reviewed as Cardboard East. But more importantly, it's the reason why I started Cardboard East. Now, I've always been wanting to start some sort of channel or blog talking about games from Asia, but it wasn't until I heard Susan Sheldon talk about this game on a podcast, and I realized, you know, she's talking about the game. I played that game a few months ago. I really like that game. She's just now hearing about it and sharing about this in the West. I should make content about Asian board games and share that out with the rest of the world. And I remember thinking at that time, now is the best time for me to do it because it's only going to get crazier and crazier and crazier as the years go by. And I was totally right about that. I'm really happy that I made that life choice and decision to start Cardboard East. But back to Mini Park, you are just building a park with mini hexagons. Now what I love about Mini Park is the simplicity of the design. On your turn, you're either going to draw a tile and place it into the park and score some points, or you're going to take a scoring tile. Now, when you take a scoring tile, you're going to take 2 scoring tiles. There are 6 of them, and one of them will score a certain way. Like maybe you want to get the most roads, maybe you want the biggest pond, maybe you want the biggest playground. But you're also going to get another scoring tile, which is going to be half the points of another one of the 6. And knowing what that half is and who has it and how to push in that direction is the subtle layers of this game. Now, the only 2 problems that I have with Mini Park are that, one, there was a second edition of the rule set, which if you got the first edition and you got the first edition rules, but the second edition rules are available on a PDF, and I think those are a better rule set to use. The second thing that I didn't like was that the scoring tokens just weren't enough, and it drove me nuts. So I printed out a smaller version of the Carcassonne scoreboard and then just left it in here with some cubes, and I just keep score that way. And this was a very simple solution to the problem that I had. Even despite those problems that I had with it, I still really, really love this game. And as many tile playing games as I play in Asia, I always ask myself, do I like this more than Mini Park? And most of the time, I gotta have to say it, the answer is no. Roundhouse is the only big box game that Emperor S4 will probably ever make. And I gotta tell you folks that this game has amazing table presence, and that's because of the massive rondelle on the board. Now the coolest thing about the rondelle is that it's a dual layered rondelle, so as you go around this action circle you can go up or down. You can go to the second floor to the first floor, and it creates so many interesting choices along the way. What's really impressive about the game is the cardboard. Look at this cardboard piece. This is the thickest cardboard piece that I've ever seen for any game, and there are 9 of them in here. But the real meat of this game isn't this massive rondelle on this side of the board. It's this ancestor action that you take. Now, with every rondelle, you're going to eventually make a loop, but the trick with this game is that once you make a loop, you're going to take this ancestor action, and you're starting from this corner, you're going to work your way around to try and get to this bottom right-hand corner to get the most amount of points that you can. And this grid is going to change every single game, and it creates a lot of replay value here. Now, as this is one of the earlier games to Emperor S4, it got a ton of expansions. Now, I've played all of those expansions, and while I do think that some of them tend to bloat the game, the core game itself is just so smooth. Now, the biggest complaint that I've heard about this game is that no one really likes the rules, and I don't understand why, because I read the rules and I understood how to play the game. So I was quite confused by those complaints. But there's a lot of things that I love about this game. I love the set collection in this game. I love the rondelle. I love how there's an area control in the rondelle for more points. I love the ancestor action where you kind of go across this board and push yourself to get to that right spot to score the most points. I love how expandable it is with all the different expansions. Now, while this game does play from 2 to 5, I don't even recommend it at 5 players. It's a little bit too much. The 2-player variant in the box, I really don't like. I created my own variant and I put it on BGG, and I find it to be just a lot smoother. But if you want to play a big, epic resource strategy game from Taiwan, I don't think you'll find better than Roundhouse. More Ideas strikes again with Joraku, but this is the deluxe edition with cool UV spotting. Now, most of you out there are probably aware of Joraku with the old school TMG version of the game, where it's a nice small box with probably the worst scoreboard I've ever seen in any board game. Let's have a scoreboard without numbers that goes like this. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. But with Joraku Deluxe, you get this nice big board with a score track going all along the outsides of the map. Not to mention that you also get all these really cool meeples in the game that just make this board really spring to life, and you feel a little battle happening on this board. Joraku is a trick-taking area control game, and there aren't many of those, but this one does it really, really well. And the cards that you have a change in value throughout the course of the game. So 6s might be really good towards the beginning of the game, but 1s are really powerful towards the end of the game. But I love that not only are you playing cards to win the trick so you can score more points, but you're also playing cards to move units onto the board, move the units from the board all the way to the left to Kyoto, and attacking your opponent. Now, I'm going to say something a little bit mean. I'm going to say that Joraku doesn't feel like a modern trick-taking game, but it feels like an older style of design, but it holds up so well. So if you love area control and you love trick-taking, then Joraku is one of the few games on the planet that combines those two mechanics so well. And the deluxe edition is, ooh, easy on the eyes. Taiwan Night Market is a very mean but very cool auction game. Now, I've done a review of this and a playthrough, so I'll put a link down below for you to check out. One of the most definitive things about Taiwan are its night markets, and they are an absolute joy to explore. And Taiwan Night Market takes this excellent theme and converts it to a brutal auction game. Now, while the base game is a brutal auction game, it's the expansion that really makes this something special. The expansion allows forgiveness and flexibility and makes each player react to each other in a very unique way. Bob over there is taking all the customers away because he has some great food and a great location. Well, will invest in a loudspeaker and his customers are gonna come to your booth instead. Not making any money, we'll put a food cart at the end of the night market, and that way you're guaranteed cash all the time. Your neighbors are making a killing, we'll invest in a trash can, and then they'll be giving you money because you're taking out their trash. Now, Taiwan Night Market only plays 3 to 4 players, but I can't recommend it enough. The only part about Taiwan Night Market that I don't like was that the Kickstarter campaign didn't raise enough money to get the expansion maps, because the expansion maps would have made this absolutely perfect and most likely higher up on this list. How could I not put Hanamakoji on this list? Hanamakoji is without a doubt the best selling board game out of Taiwan, period. Now, I've already reviewed these games. I've not only reviewed Hanamakoji Geisha's Road, but also Hanamakoji's expansions, which really elevate this game to just new levels. And I'll put a link down below for you to check those out. Now, Hanamakoji is a 2-player card game where players are vying for control favor of geishas. But the twist here is that it utilizes the mechanic of I split, you choose. And it probably does it better than most games out there on the market ever. Hanamakoji is devilishly simple. Throughout each hand, you're only going to take 4 actions, but you're going to take each of those 4 actions once. And the trick is to not only choose when to take each of those 4 actions, but to use which cards. And there is a lot of card counting in this game. And it takes a while before you get good at this game. It took me a while, at least, before I started getting really, really good at this game. Now, the expansions for this change what those 4 actions are, and there are 7 of these expansions. So, you're gonna be playing to your heart's content. And if that's not enough for you, you can actually mix and choose if you really want to. I don't recommend it, but you can. Now, if that is a little bit too simple for you and want a little bit more depth and a little bit more going on in your game, then Geisha's Road is something that you may want to look into. Now, with Geisha's Road, you still have the same card play and the same 4 actions and the same I split, you choose mechanic, but there's a spatial element where the geishas are moving around in a circle, visiting different tea shops and collecting different customers. And you have to really think about a lot of things as you play the game. Now, which do I like more? When I made my series of videos, I said they're about the same, and today I still feel that same way. But to be honest, I've been playing Hanamakoji a little bit more than Geisha's Road. And I think that's just because of the approachability and the smoothness of the original design. If you want to know more about these games and the expansion for Hanamakoji, which can also be used for Geisha's Road, definitely check out those videos that I linked down below. Fun fact, the clock on Mini Express is set at 10:10, which is Taiwan's National Day. Mini Express, I think, is Moidea's best game. Now, there was Mini Rails, and Mini Rails is the game that built the house of Moideas. But I also think it's Mark Garrett's best design. If you don't know who Mark Garrett is, he's done a lot of train games, and a lot of them were published by Moideas. He wanted to make a cube rail game without money, and I think he really succeeded with Mini Express. Now, while some people didn't like the trains and how they felt they were too small, and there was some print on the trains and they couldn't really see, I think it's mostly just the lighting that they use in their game area. Since then, I have kind of taken my trains out of my copy and I use cubes instead because I just love cubes more than trains. Just like Hanamakoji, I love the simplicity of the design here. You either lay track or you take shares. That's it. That's all you do. Now, each of those actions are quite complicated and very layered in what you do, but I really love that simple choice. Now, while some people didn't like the base game, and I completely understand why, the base game itself has 2 maps. You have the American map and you have the European map, and both of those are enjoyable maps, but it's the expansion maps that really make this game sing. Ultra bias alert, I designed the Taiwan map and I heavily developed the UK map. But there's also the Japan map by Hisashi Hayashi. What? And a map in Spain. So you have 4 more maps. Each map comes with its own mechanics that put a twist on the game, similar to the Ticket to Ride. And this system of lay track or buy shares gets explored in a completely different way with each one of those 4 maps. And making that map total to 6 makes it pretty amazing, I think. Now, I've played the UK map and the Taiwan map to death, and I absolutely enjoy both of them. But I've only played the Japan and the Spain map a handful of times, and I can't wait for them to finally get fulfilled and reach out to people, because I think they're going to be really, really happy with what they get. So yeah, I'm a bit biased with this pick, but hey, I gotta choose what I love. I said Mini Park was my favorite tile laying game, but there's tiles and you're laying them down in Electropolis. Oops. Now, Electropolis is pretty stark here. This nice barren cover doesn't really shout by me. And the components themselves are pretty stark as well. So when you put this game on your table, you might think it's going to be kind of bland looking, but it's the exact opposite, because while there are all these clear whites and beiges, there are all these splotches of color here and there, and it creates almost this serene feel because everything is very, very clear. And you don't get that with a lot of modern designs in games today. But the best thing about this is the core auctioning mechanic. Each round you're going to be choosing from going first, and maybe you want to get one tile, or going last and getting a lot of tiles. So you're constantly trying to figure out the balance of greed versus control. And once you get all your tiles, you're going to put them onto your city board, and all the tiles interact with each other. And you're trying to create popularity to get people to like you, but at the same time, you don't want to create too much pollution. It's the balancing of all these mechanics together, from the auctioning to the tiling, from balancing pollution and popularity to arranging tiles in a certain way so you score points from the scorecards. All that together makes a very unique and clean experience that makes this worth revisiting. And even though it doesn't pop off your shelf, it's going to look fantastic on your table. Pathogen, an abstract with teeth. Now, I've already done some videos on this, including an interview with the designer. I'll put a link down below for you to check those videos out. First of all is just the look of the game. It looks great on the table. The black and white of the boards makes it somewhat familiar, like, oh, chess, checkers, I kind of remember this, but then the splotches of color that come to life from the components, excellent look. But the best part of the game is the asymmetric play. Now, while the Plague and the Plague Doctor play very similarly, there have very subtle differences that really change the gameplay. The Plague starts off incredibly strong, already starting with table presence. And they can win the game if the Doctor isn't really paying attention. In the course of the game, as the Doctor gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the Pathogen gets weaker, and then the Doctor becomes really strong towards the end game. So there's this really interesting balance there. I really can't recommend this enough. I was really, really blown away by this design. It is something that I really haven't seen before. I love the little board here where all the decisions is making, and then it's all represented on this other board here. I love how the meeples walk around. I love that you have two meeples, one in the world of the living and one in the world of the dead, and never the two shall meet, but somehow they have to work together to win the game. And I love how there's blocking. I love how you can get in your opponent's face. I love the extra tension that's there. I love learning how to read the patterns in the game. There's just so much to explore, so many layers to the design. I can't recommend Pathogen enough. As if there was any doubt, Formosa Tea is the best game to ever come from Taiwan. If you've been following me on Instagram, you have seen this take over my Instagram account with tons of pictures. I absolutely love this game. Now, before I even talk about the mechanics of this game, I gotta say that the publisher did an amazing job marketing this here in Taiwan. He went to multiple tea shops around the island. He went to multiple tea factories and playtested this game with tons of people and paired it with tea. The first time I played this game, I think I must have had 3 different types of tea as I'm playing this, all from Taiwan. Wow, what an experience. But it's also the game that caused my wife to play board games with me. And now she asks me every day, I want to play a board game. I want to play a board game. We're playing this when I get back home from work. That's my life now. How awesome is that? I remember we had some friends over and they said, Jay, you have this wall of games, we're playing a game today. And my wife, bless her heart, was like, okay, I'll sit down and I'll play along. And then at the end of the game, they all looked at me as is this what board gaming is now? This is amazing. The power of the game. Going into the mechanics, the one thing I really love about this game is I love the idea of gaining resources or processing your resources into better resources. Now, there's this nice balance of the game is if I go get tea, every time I get tea, I'm pushing people further along the tracks. So that means that I want to get on these tracks early so that way people push me forward. But in order for me to get on those tracks, I need to harvest tea. So there's this immediate balance to the game between getting tea or getting on the tracks early and having people push you forward. Now, if that weren't enough, on your player board, there's this whole mechanic about moisture and getting moisture out of the tea leaves, which is a very real world thing. And you get on these technologies where you can get better at processing tea, and it becomes this nice fun puzzle of how to remove moisture from your tea as efficiently as possible so you get better quality leaves, so when you fulfill the contract, you'll score even more points. Above all of that, there is asymmetrical play, where there are these real historical characters from Taiwan's history that you can play as, and they each give you a unique player power for you to have fun and explore. But perhaps the reason why I love it the most is that it takes something historical from Taiwan and gamifies it in this beautiful way and shares it with the rest of the world. And that's what I do with Cardboard East, and that's what this does on its own, existing how it is. And to me, that makes it hands down the best game to ever come out of Taiwan. Once again, my name is Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. See you in the next video.